Hey guys, and welcome back. After learning about two types of layouts, linear and relative layouts, it's time to take a look at the most used and recommended type of layout in Android, which is the constraint layout. Constraint layout is pretty similar to relative layout. However, it gives us the flexibility of positioning views according to some constraints provided between views and their parents. Constraint layouts helps us to create responsive layouts and designs for different screen sizes according to something called flat positioning between views, which lets us avoid nesting view groups as we did before with our linear layout. Now, avoiding nesting view groups or layout means more readable code and, most importantly, efficiency, which means that the constraint layout outperforms all kinds of layout. Additionally, constraint layout has built-in functionality for animations, which opens the door for complex designs and UI animations. In addition to that, constraint layouts provide helpers or minor widgets that can help us on the positioning or the constraints of a view within a parent. When we use constraint layout, we would rarely touch XML code directly, as Android Studio Design Editor allows us to simply create UIs just by dragging and dropping views within the parent and specifying their constraints on the fly. Now moving to our Android Studio project to create our layout. So we're going to create this layout here using the constraint layout, and this is going to be the first video related to the constraint layout, because we're going to have a second video, maybe a third video as well, talking about the constraint layout and the properties of the constraint layout. Now, without any further delay, let's just change the relative layout here to a constraint layout. Now here, we're gonna first create our image view. So let's just go to the design tab, learn how we can use the palette instead of just writing our views by hand. So if you go to the design tab here and open the palette, here you have all the views that you can use just by taking them, dragging them and dropping them on the canvas, and they will be just simply added to your view like this here. Now let me just take the first thing is the image view. So if you don't find your desired view, just go here and type your view. So I'm going to take an image view, drag it and drop it here. And whenever you just drag your image view, you have to at least choose a source for that image view. So we have a couple of sources here related to our project. So I'm just going to choose the sample data here, and it will be added with the tools attribute. So attribute starts with tools. So any attribute that starts with tools is considered to be not affecting the view at the runtime. So whenever you run your application, your image view here will be empty and nothing in there. So pay attention that tools, any attribute that starts with tools, is considered to be only affecting the view at the design time and not at the runtime. Now you can see once we created our image view, we have an error. And if you just hover over the image view here, you can see that it tells you that the view is not constrained and it only has a design time position. And once you run your application, the view will move to the 0, 0 position, which is the very start of the screen. So what does that mean? Well, in constraint layout, you have at least two specified constraints for the view, one place or one direction vertically and one direction horizontally. And if you didn't, and if you just dragged the view and put it anywhere on the screen without adding or specifying any constraints for that view, then your view will move to the 0, 0 position once you run your application, and it will not be placed correctly within the parent. So to specify constraints, we have three ways. The first one is by obviously just typing the attribute or typing where this view should be constrained to. So we have a couple of attributes in constraint layout. So for example, I want to constrain the start of this view to the start of the parent. So the way to say this is just by calling the layout underscore start constrain start of this view. So this first sentence here goes to the view to constrain the start of the view to the start of the target or the start of the parent here. So our target here is going to be the parent. As you can see, it just moves to the very start of the parent. Now you can see we still have an error because we just constrained this view only one place horizontally. We have to add a second place or a second direction vertically. So let's just constrain the bottom of this view to the bottom of the parent by using layout. Constrain bottom of this view to the bottom of the parent. And you can see it just moves to the very bottom of the parent, and the error is gone from the image view. Now the second way to constrain the view is by just dragging these points here from Design tab. So let me just delete all the attributes that we have added and go to the Design tab here. Let me just zoom in by Control and moving the mouse scroll forwards. And you can see you could just take these points and attach it to the parent, or attach it to the target, or attach it to the view if we have another view within the parent. So here I'm just gonna attach the top of this view to the top of the parent, then the start of this view to the start of the parent, maybe the end of this view to the end of the parent as well. And you can see Android Studio added these 3 attributes automatically to our image view here, and you can see just constraint centered horizontally in the parent. Now the third way is by using the attributes pane. So once again, let me delete all the attributes and let me just put it here and go to the Design tab. Once you go to Design tab, the attributes pane will open. If it didn't, just click on it, and here you can see in the attributes pane we have the current ID of this view. We have the declared attributes for this view, along with the constraint, the widget, which is just a helper to help you constrain your widget. And you can see also we have other attributes, other possible attributes that we can add to this image view here. Now let me just go back to the constraint view or constraint widget here. And you can see you just can click all these plus icons here to constrain your object, or to constrain your image view. So if you just click the start of the view, it will be constrained to the start of the parent. And for example, the end, then the top, it will be constrained to the parent automatically, and it will add the attributes for you. If you go back, you can notice these values here, which represents the margin of the view. So this view has a margin of 159 from the top to the top of the parent. And you could simply just change the margin here, or just type your desired value like 18 for example, and it will change automatically. And it will also take effect here in the views attribute. Okay, now according to our layout, the image here doesn't have any margin, so you could simply just remove the margin by setting the left margin or the start margin to 0, the top margin to 0, and lastly the end margin to 0, as well as the width. So in the original layout, the width is filling the whole parent, so we could simply just say match parent. Or alternatively, we could use the 0dp. So giving 0dp to the width and height within a constraint layout is something called match constraints, and it makes the view match the whole space of its constraints. What makes the 0dp or the match constraints different from the match parent is that the view pays respect to its constraints. So to understand this more, let's have an example. So I'm just gonna remove all the constraints of this view by removing the attributes, or simply just right click and clear constraints of the selection, or you can also just click on this icon here. Now here, say for example that our image is just drag and wrap, and you're gonna have a view added to the design or the parent here. I'm just gonna drag the button and put it here. Now I'm just gonna constrain this to the start of the parent, then this one to the end of the parent, and then constrain both of these views together. Now let's just say that our button here is going to be match parent instead of 0dp, so it's going to be match parent. And you can see that the button just fills the whole space no matter if we have a view in the way or not, so it doesn't pay respect to other views within the same line. However, if you change it from match parent to 0dp, which is called match constraint, you can see it just pays respect to the constraints of this view, and it just fills the whole space that it needs to really fill it, so it doesn't overpass or overlay over other views. Let me just now delete the button, and again let me just create the constraints of this view and constrain our view here within the parent. So instead of just dragging the first to the first of the parent and the end to the end of the parent, we could just simply right click, go to center, then choose horizontally center in parent, and the constraints will be added for you. Now let me just add the start, and once again let me add the 0dp. Now here I'm gonna have a fixed height to our image view, something around 150 dp. Yeah, 150 dp is good because we're gonna have an image later here, and our image is going to be from src drawable. I've already created the images. I'm gonna put a link to the description for the original images on Pinterest. So I have a drawable movie cover, and let me just delete the tools src compat because it's affecting the real image, and you can see our real image is here. So our image here within our actual image view doesn't fill the space, though it fills this space, but the image ratio is not filling the available space. So just to resolve this issue, we have an attribute called scale type, and here we can choose different type of scales to scale our image within its bounds. So I'm gonna just choose center crop, and you can see the image is filling the bounds of the parent. And maybe here I'm just gonna increase the height a little bit more, like 250 dp, and I guess it's 250 dp. Now it looks cool. Now moving to creating the other image view, or the movie poster in this case. So I'm just gonna go to the design tab and drag and drop the image, choose sample data, click OK, and here I want the image to be somewhere here on top of our image view. So I'm gonna first attach the end of this image to the end of the view or the end of the parent, both will work. Then the start of this image to the start of the view. And you can notice once you take two opposite direction, when you constrain an object vertically or horizontally, this scroll bar here will appear, and it's used to determine the bias, something called bias, or how far the view is from its constraints. So if you want to determine how far the view is from the start of the parent or the start of the image view, just simply drag it to the start of the image view, and the value is starting from 0 to 1. So 0.1 here resembles a 10% of the bias here, so 10% is good. Now I want to just add start of the top of this view to the top of the parent, and the end of this view to the end of the parent. And here again we're going to specify the bias value, so maybe around 25, 22.4. Let me just add it from here. 0.25 is good. Now let's add a fixed width and height for this value, because our poster is quite big. So I'm just gonna add some fixed size. It's gonna be rectangular size, so maybe width is going to be 100 dp, maybe 150 dp, and for the height is going to be 250 dp. Yeah, 250 dp is quite good. Now let's add our poster. So src at drawable movie poster, and let's delete the tools src, and it will be added. Now again, it doesn't fill the whole space, so let's use the scale type attribute again and choose center crop. Now moving to creating other views, we have to add the text view. So I'm going to open the palette, drag and drop the text view from the text, and then we're going to have to create an icon to save the movie, for example. Going to the project, right click on the app, vector asset, the save icon. Just go here and type save. Okay, and name it IC save. Next, and finish. Now here, I'm gonna drag an image view, and choose the icon. So, okay. Once you added the icon, once you added anything rather than a sample data, it will be added as an image rather than a tool. So to be added as a vector or an image rather than having a tool attribute. Now, okay, let's go to the design and to try to constrain these two views in this space. So you could simply just drag the first of this view to the end of the image, and then the end of this view to the end of the parent, then just connect them together by creating a constraint between them. But instead of doing this by your hand and then adding some bias to the view and all the stuff, you could just simply rely on Android Studio to do this job for you. So let me just select both of these views, right click, clear constraint subselection, and just put them where you want to put them, and then select both of these views and right click and choose chains. So what chains does, it constrains these views equivalently within the same space horizontally and vertically. So if you, for example, choose the create horizontal chain here, you can see both of these views are constrained correctly, leaving the same amount of space around them. So just constrained within the occupied place here correctly. Now, what we want to add is to make them constrained from the top to the bottom of the image. Again, for this one, top to the bottom, no margin. Then the bottom of this text view to the bottom of this image. Similarly for our icon here. So for the chains, we have a couple of modes for the chains. If you right click and go to the chains again, you can see we have horizontal chain style. We have the spread, which make them as the way you see them, the default mode. We also have the spread inside. Both of them, you can see, just pushed to the end of the constraint. And similarly, we have the last one, which is packed, and it makes them very close to each other. Now what we want here is to have the spread inside mode, which put them at the end of the constraints. So here I'm just going to add some margin to our text view around 16 dp, and some margin to our icon around 16 dp as well. And then let me just edit the text view from the code tab here. So our text view is going to be bold, text style is bold, then the text size around 22 sp. Then the text, which is going to be the name of the movie, Interstellar in this case, Stellar, and that's it. So here, what we have left is to create the buttons to rent the movie, for example, or buy the movie. Here again, gonna grab two buttons, and again creating chains, or creating a chain with these two buttons. Right click, chain, create horizontal chain, then constrain them to the image. I'm gonna have to add some margin to the top of both of these buttons, like 16 dp. Here as well, 16 dp. And let's change the text of these two buttons. Here is gonna be print, and the other one is going to be buy. Now we have to add the ratings, the category of this movie, and some description. So here is going to be a lot of text views actually. This one again, and both or all of them will be packed within a chain. So add a create horizontal chain again. Let me just move or zoom in and attach them to the bottom of any of these views. Doesn't matter. they have the same space. Now gonna have to add some padding, like 32 for each of them. 32. And here, for example, this will resemble the rating. Gonna make them all italic. The text is going to be somewhere around 4.9. Here, this text style is italic as well. And the text is going to be, for example, family. And here, rating on Rotten Tomatoes website. And finally, similar movies. Like when the user clicks here, it just takes the user to the similar movies of this movie. Now lastly, we have to add the description of this movie. So again, there's going to be a text view, palette, text view, and just put it to the bottom of any of these views. And the bottom is going to be at the parent. Now let me just center it horizontally in parent, and the text is going to be text size around 25 sp, and here just gonna add some sample data. So I already have this this sample data. I'm just gonna put it on a string resource rather than having it here. So go to the XML values string and create a new string resource. It's gonna be string name is sample data, then close it and add your values here. So this is the string resource or the sample data, and here I'm just gonna reference the sample data by typing add string, then sample data. It's sample date, not data, sample data. Okay, so here you can see it just fills the whole thing. We have a couple of errors here because it fills the whole thing, and I have to make it for the height 0 dp. It doesn't have to go beyond beyond its constraints. Similarly for the width, and here we have to add some padding inside the text view because we don't want the text to be very close to the parent. So padding is going to be around 16 dp, and I think we are done creating our layout. So this is our output of the layout. I hope you enjoyed creating this layout with the constraint layout. In the next video, we will be talking more about the helpers of the constraint layout and how we can use them to simplify our UI creation process. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.